So why is it so overwhelming when we experience a breakup? It's because what we do with our brain is that we map the world, right? And we associate our relationship, our partner, our spouse, to this element of safety and comfort. And also, what is very important is predictability. When you stop being in the relationship, all your life is turned upside down because you can't make sense, you can't predict, your map is not working anymore. You don't know what's going to happen tonight. You don't know how you feel in the morning. You don't know, how you react, what you do when something happens to you, who to share it, etc. So why breakups feel so overwhelming? The first thing you have to understand is that we associate our partner to elements of safety and comfort and also predictability. They are a big part of our life, and when we remove this part, it's very hard to make sense of things. We have to change our habits, we have to change our little rituals, we have to change how we communicate, etc., etc. And it's very hard because you don't have this map anymore, you don't know exactly how to function. And that's the readjustment that needs to take place after a breakup is also what am I going to do with my life almost on a day-to-day basis. And because you can't make sense of this new world, that will create emotional and physical pain. An element you have to understand as well is the attachment bonds that are wired in the brain. We all have a deep need to be attached to a primary attachment figure. So when we lose this bond, it's very hard for us to feel safe. Obviously, avoidant people have a different response because they have this inner, I don't know if it's a strength or a weakness, but this idea of being self-reliant. So it's not that they would enjoy it, they'll probably bounce back more easily. That doesn't mean that they won't be disrupted, they will dismiss those things. If you have an anxious attachment style, the pain will be usually stronger. I'll explain in a second. And that's why if you have an anxious attachment style, it's not that you're weaker, or it's more about how you perceive attachment. And sometimes a breakup will make a fear of abandonment, an abandonment would resurface. So that's the first element. The other element that you have to take into account is this idea of survival system. Losing someone, losing a primary attachment figure, it's back to the primal primitive part of our brain where we need to feel safe, almost as like having a shelter, having food and water. A partner is an essential need. So that's why you activate this survival system, and that's why you get those cortisol spikes, right? When you are under stress, jumping from the plane, breaking up, etc., you release cortisol to have a sort of a high stress level. So basically, when you wake up, you have high spike of cortisol level to be alert, to be awake, which is healthy, which is fine. The problem is that after a breakup, after something difficult to go through, you have a lot of high spike, and the level of cortisol wouldn't go down sharply. The healthy response is like a high spike in the morning and a steep decrease. And usually when you're under stress, you have a high spike and you stay really high, and that will affect your body and also your emotion, because you're going to feel emotionally burned out. And that's why the breakup often mimics the pain of a physical injury. The source is The Grieving Brain from Mary Frances O'Connor. So it's fascinating that you think like, oh, I'm weak. It happens to everyone. This is a normal response. And that's why you might feel exhausted. That's why you might feel lost, confused. Sometimes people are completely sore because of this emotional and physical exhaustion. Another very interesting element is what we call the phantom limb. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but some people who lost a leg might feel the pain in their the leg that's been removed, despite not having the leg. And this is how it feels sometimes when you lose a partner. You also sort of make a transfer of this pain, of something that's lost that you don't have anymore. So this phantom limb syndrome is very interesting. I would encourage you to look at things around that. It's accepting the absence, right? And that's why, because this part is gone, and that creates confusion, right? Confusion, sadness, anxiety, etc. Because this part is gone, but at the same time, a part of you think it's there. Your house, the environment, your social media feed makes you feel you're still together. And it's usually because of this cognitive dissonance of like, we are together, but we are not together, but in my heart, we're still together. That creates that confusion and that anxiety. That's why also when you have memories, when you see social media posts or things like that, that could trigger these emotional and physical reaction, because that will bring you back to when you were together. And then when the spike of dopamine of getting that impulse of almost joy of seeing them is gone, then you're left confused because you're not together anymore. And so the reason it's hard to let go is because the brain will resist because of the habit tied to the relationship. We are animals of habit. Habits are driven by the unconscious part of the brain. Daniel Kahneman called that the system 1 brain, the primitive part of the brain, the automatic system. And it's very hard to let go of those habits. When I say habit, it's not only the rituals in the morning, sending a text or making your partner a cup of coffee. It's also the mental habits as well. Okay, and this is very hard to let go and to reconstruct. So when you lose those habits, those dopamine level drops. When the dopamine level drops, you feel completely numb. You feel lost, you feel empty, you feel low in energy. That's why everyone after a breakup, you just don't want to go out. You just want to stay in bed. You don't want to see anyone because your dopamine level are very low. You feel like, I don't have the energy. And sometimes you might feel like, I will do it when I feel ready or when I feel motivated, which is a bit of a danger. And I'll discuss in a second what you need to do. What you have to understand is because you need to recalibrate yourself, to change your surroundings, your life, your way of thinking. It has to be a conscious effort. You can't feel, and that's the danger of sometimes tips that you might hear from online or friends. Time won't heal the wounds if you don't make the conscious effort to build that new life, to recreate those new habits. Because otherwise, your brain will still be tied to those old habits unless you actively try to change them. So it's very important to be aware of that. If you don't do anything, your brain, despite the pain, will continue on those unconscious processes. I discussed a little bit before the physical effect of breakup. So the high cortisol, the imbalance of cortisol intake will cause fatigue, headache, muscle tension. So the hormones, cortisol is an hormone that we release in the brain, from the brain. It's from the HPA axis. And that will create a range of symptoms: sleep disruption, overthinking, appetite change. So sometimes it's overeating, sometimes it's loss of anger. What you have to understand is, and it's fascinating, the immune system weakens. So that's why a lot of people, when they grieve, they catch cold, they are sick, they are ill. And you might be thinking like, it's not related. It is. Because our emotional reaction will create cortisol that will affect our immune system. And another one is obviously the fight or flight response, is heartbeat, sweating, restlessness, etc. Because you're constant alert, as if you're about to die every single hour. Okay, so it's really, those symptoms are really typical of people breaking up. So again, if there's something I want you to understand is, if you feel this way, it's normal. Okay, it's because you're a human being and you have a brain. That's it. So just, if I can reassure you, that's normal if you feel this way. And the point of this video is to explain why the following tips make sense. Because sometimes they common sense and people tell you, yeah, just like play tennis with friends and you'll be fine. There are reasons why. That's why I make those videos. Maybe I dig a little bit deeper than other people online, is just to help you understand and get the rationale of things. I just don't want you to listen and apply tips if you don't get why it matters. Now let's talk about the emotional effect of breakup. When you lose a partner, it feels that we are losing part of ourselves. It's normal to be, as you're invested in a relationship, to feel that a part of your identity is also in the relationship. And so letting go of a relationship is about redefining your identity, which again takes time and is very hard to accept. And that's why you might also feel this sadness, anger. All of those emotions are part of the grieving process. Sometimes one day you'll feel guilty, another one you'll feel angry, upset, etc. It's part of the grieving process. The whole point of the grieving process, whether it's something you do with a therapist or on your own, is to unpack those emotions and find how you can learn something about yourself and letting go of those resentment and negative things. Not that they're negative in themselves, but that's, okay, this is a signal, this is a piece of information, let me process this information and move forward on that. Another impact as well, emotional impact, is around self-worth. When someone rejects you, as we discussed, is going against our primitive need to be attached, to be with someone, to be loved, to form this bond. And so it's something you also need to rebuild as part of that healing process. And obviously, lots of anxiety. Anxiety is basically thinking about something, or usually ruminating about something that you can't solve. So thinking about things in the future, things in the past, things you can't control, creating scenarios in your head, because you can't find a solution, because every time you think about the problem, you find another solution, you keep on ruminating on those things. And again, it's because you have to readapt yourself to that new reality. And it takes a bit of time and it creates that anxiety. Other elements of this effect, this emotional effects, is this roller coaster. That's why getting in touch with your ex can be dangerous if you're not ready, because you're going to go back on that roller coaster of like, I need him or her in my life. Okay, but they're not answering my message. I want them to open up, but they don't give it to me. I want them to give me that closure, but they keep being distant and vague and they don't give me what I want, etc., etc. What you have to remember is, I know it's painful. I know you want to reduce this amount of time where you're in pain, but regardless of where you are, this is temporary. Everyone has a different timeline. This is temporary. If you have the right support system in place, I'm not only talking about therapy. It could be friends, could be books, could be, but if you are, again, as I discussed, it's about making the conscious effort of working through this grief. You'll feel better quicker than if you just let go. My assumption is that because you're watching videos like mine, you'll probably heal quicker than anyone else who's not interested in this, who stays at home and doesn't do anything or isolate him or herself. Another element that you can again leverage with therapy, with friends, is this element of self-compassion. Because it's going to be a bumpy road. Today maybe you don't feel well, tomorrow you'll feel better. But maybe in a week's time, you might feel not so good anymore. And it doesn't mean that you don't make any progress. It's just like it's a bumpy road. And understand that it's fine. I'm pretty sure there's thousands of people who will be watching this video. They're going through the exact same experience as you. And they'll be fine. And they're not bad, they're not weak. It's normal. So if there's something that could reassure you, is learn every single day to love yourself just a little bit more, to be a little bit more optimistic. And trust me, soon enough, you'll feel better. Now, this element of being stuck, the brain reward system will crave the relationship, because obviously a relationship gives us not only a sense of validation, a sense of reassurance, but those spikes of dopamine. The problem is, because of that, because you're missing that, you might be longing for what could have been, right? Or if only I said this 6 months ago, if only I did that 1 month before they broke up. Again, we are back to those rumination element and how you create anxiety. When you have those thoughts, that prevents you from moving forward, because it keeps you hold to the past. The attachment feels stronger when you are creating those narratives. So it's very important to let go of those narratives. This obsession, rumination, will keep you in the cycle for longer. Again, it's by getting those insights, getting the knowledge around breakups, the science behind this, that you'll be able to plan and proactively create the right dynamic, to make the right actions so you can heal faster. So let's discuss about the how. So how can you rewire the brain after a breakup? As we discussed, it's about habits. So build new habits, replace old patterns. Elizabeth is, I would say, is number one. He's excellent at helping people understanding their patterns and rebuilding new patterns. So if you want to have, if you want to speak with her, have a look in the description. I'll put a link, but that's her specialty. She's amazing at that. Because the thing is, when you're not aware of the patterns and you don't work on the patterns, hey, guess what? You're going to reproduce the same thing. And you're going to have the same failure or the same feelings of being incomplete, dissatisfied, etc., etc. Another element is engage in activities that put dopamine. Again, it's interesting because these are tips that I shared before. These are tips that you might see on blogs, etc. I think this video will help you understand, like, that's why it makes sense. Okay, because it's really affecting your brain structure. So activities that boost dopamine, so exercise, hobbies, when you're with friends, when you're doing something, sport is great because you have a goal and you achieve something. So it's very personal, but I like doing classes. So I'm with people and I'm pushing myself. You can do sports, hobbies is great because also you have something where you learn. So I don't know if you learn a new instrument, etc. You can feel like, oh, okay, this month I've learned to play this song or whatever. Find what works for you. But it's all about, okay, how can I proactively design a life that would create the condition for me to get those boosts of dopamine. So that's why you have goals to rebuild that confidence, independence. Another element is the triggers. That's why you have to go no contact. There's no other way around. Don't tell me, yeah, but it's friendly and it's nice. No, you can't. And I'm going to be very, very clear on this. You can't move on after a breakup if you don't go no contact at some stage. That's impossible. It's impossible to grieve the relationship if you are constantly in touch with your ex after you break up. And your ex might be super friendly, super nice. You might feel okay with that, but deep inside, especially if you're watching this video, that doesn't work for you. And you have to let go. I'm not saying that you should remove this person from your life and you never see him or her forever. I'm just saying, like, for a period of time, this is what you need. Another element that helps a lot, and it depends on people's style, journaling, writing things down. When I say about unpacking those emotions, like write things down. So my clients that I'm following on WhatsApp, we use that tool. They journal on WhatsApp. They tell me how they feel on a certain day, when they wake up or when they go to bed, and then we reflect on this.